Nelly B. Jones writes, I love movies very much, but I'm also an avid reader, and seeing my favorite books adapted to the big screen should make me very happy. But most of the time, the adaptations make the book even worse, especially when it's a series, Harry Potter being the exception. Vampire Academy, the book, is nothing like the movie. But the one thing I truly hate the most is when they split that last book into two different movies. The third book in the Hunger Games series, Mockingjay, is in my opinion not very good, and to split it into two makes me not want to see it at all. Why do they do that, and why is the release between those two parts almost a year apart?
I agree with you. I don't think the third book in the Hunger Games series is all that good, but I didn't think the second book in the Hunger Games series was all that good. And the movie was amazing. The movie worked out great. Now, I'm in the minority not liking the second or third Hunger Games books on that level. But this brings up a big thing. This is a big topic. You always hear people say, the book was better.
Yep.
Here's the problem.
You just heard me say that 5 seconds ago.
Here's why, though, I really believe. Because if you talk to a lot of people, very few people will watch a movie first and then read the book. Most people don't think they need to read the book once they've seen a movie. But I've got a few friends who have seen a movie and then read a book, the book version of it afterwards, and say, the movie was better. Here's why. Our first experience with a story tends to be the gauge by which we measure everything else. So when you're reading a book, the pictures aren't painted for you. You know, your imagination starts to put it all together, and you can experience a certain way. And also, don't forget, a book can be 400 pages long, whereas a movie has to be condensed down to a 90 to 120 page screenplay. So there's going to be some things missing, but as you're reading that book, you're getting in all this stuff that's going to be missing from the movie when you watch it. You can picture scenes and characters however your imagination wants to picture it, and then that's your experience with it. Then you go and watch a movie version, and 9 times out of 10, we feel let down by it because our first experience with something was with the book. It doesn't do the things the way we pictured it in our heads. So much of the material is missing, some extra things were added. And then people who watch the movie first, a lot of times they feel like the movie was better than the book because that was their first experience. As far as why they split books into two, there's a couple of different reasons. One reason is simply because of what we said. Books can be 400, 500, 600, 700. I mean, I remember the last Harry Potter book was like a tome. Like, it was huge. And you got to boil that down to like a 120-page screenplay. So sometimes, in a lot of cases, it just makes sense. I even think like the last Twilight film was a really big book. It makes sense. Chop it in half and do it as 2 separate films because there's just too much material to cover in one film. Like, you got 800 pages, can't squeeze that down to a 100-page screenplay. So that makes sense. But then there's a little milking as well. You know, when the studio knows, hey, we've got a hot, popular property here, let's stretch this out a little bit. Can we do the last book in this series as 2 movies and still make them high quality? If yes, then it just makes sense to do them that way. So on one hand, it's just practical. On the other hand, there's a little bit of milking going on there, but both are perfectly acceptable to me if you still make the movies pretty good. How do you see it?
I would say a lot of milking, but perfectly acceptable, but quite a lot of milking, because you had Harry Potter, you had Twilight, and now you have Mockingjay, Hunger Games, yeah, all doing that with the last book. Like, oh my God, this is just so much money. Can we split it into 2? Yes, we can. Like, obviously, you can condense a movie like The Stand, which is like the 700-800 pages. You can condense that down to 2 hours. Or you can rock it to 6 hours as a TV series, or you could do a 12-part mini-series. There's all different ways of adapting. And like what you were talking about when you read a book, you have all those visuals burned into your mind that you thought of. I mean, it's a totally different game. When I read a book and then I see the adaptation, for comic books it's a little different because it's a visual and storytelling medium. So something like Watchmen, not only is the words of Alan Moore so important, but it's also the images by Dave Gibbons that equally burn together. So I think someone like Zack Snyder did a really good version of The Watchmen by keeping so much of Dave Gibbons and Alan Moore's original text and visual, using Dave Gibbons stuff almost as a moving storyboard in some certain cases. That's why, to me, even though they changed certain things and cut a ton of stuff out, it felt like such a great adaptation. Just, that's my opinion. But, the long and short of it is like, yeah, that's going to be making a lot more money if you have 2 movies instead of 1. Could they have done the third Hunger Games as 1 movie? Sure. But why? When you're like, we have a rabid fan base, we can release them 1 year apart, just like they did with The Matrix. And they do that with a lot of other films when they're like, they shoot things back to back. They can Lord of the Rings is a perfect example. You know, we have them coming out one a year because they shot them back to back, and ultimately, who wins is us. We get to see instead of having to wait 3 years.
If they do them right.
If they do them right,
right.
Yeah.
Because we all, but I think the one thing we can all agree on, and I think whatever side of this debate we fall, I think we can all universally agree that they need to split the last 50 Shades of Grey book into 3 films. I think we can all agree on that. Yes? Yes. All right.
If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to AMC Movie News on YouTube. It's free and a great way to stay updated with all the latest movie news, and check out our daily show, AMC Movie Talk. Also, don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter to stay in the loop for our special prizes, giveaways, and contests.